Control Your Life. Don't Let Others Dictate It with Elizabeth Saunders, episode 190. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I have Elizabeth Saunders with us. Elizabeth Saunders is the founder of Real Life E-Time Coaching and Speaking. I met Elizabeth over on LinkedIn, which appears to be where I meet a lot of people. And we connected on the phone and I said, you know what, I really want you to come on the podcast because you deal with something that is a big struggle for a lot of my listeners. And that has to do with time management and really understanding how to set boundaries and do it in a way that makes sense. It's kind of like me with food. And I have a really hard time setting boundaries. It feels very restrictive. It feels like I don't like dieting. I like dieting in, where there's a beginning and an end. The problem is that when you end the diet, you go back to where you were before, right? So you have to find a solution that's not like dieting. You have to find one that works for you. And I can't wait to dive into a conversation with Elizabeth on this topic. Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more. No buzzwords, no jargon, no BS, just results to make your law firm grow. That's Legalese Marketing. Legalese Marketing is a full-service marketing agency for lawyers by legal experts and digital advertising specialists. Their goal? To help your firm stand out in a competitive marketplace with personalized solutions to help your law firm attract the clients you want, backed by the systems to make it all work correctly. Visit profitwithlaw.com/legalese to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Noda, powered by M&T Bank. You went to law school to be a lawyer, not an accountant. Take advantage of Noda, a no-cost IOLTA management tool that helps solo and small law firms track client funds down to the penny. Enjoy peace of mind with one-click reconciliation, automated transaction alerts, and real-time bank data. Visit trustnoda.com to learn more. Terms and conditions may apply. But let me give you her official bio here and share with you Elizabeth Grace Saunders is a time management coach, author, and frequent contributor to Harvard Business Review and Fast Company. She was named one of the world's top time management professionals for 2018, 2019, and 2020 by global gurus and partners with clients around the world to accomplish more with peace and confidence. I'm going to welcome Elizabeth to the show in just a moment, but let me just take a moment and share with you a message from our sponsors.
Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profit with law to learn more.
Well, Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
And we are delighted to have you. So I always start with a guest with a really easy one. Our listeners want to know who the heck you are. So take us back a little bit. Give us a little glimpse into your life, your journey. How did you end up a time management coach? And what exactly does that mean?
I would be delighted to share. So, my journey probably is best to start out in 2005. I was about to say 20 something, but I was like, no, 2005 is when I first started my first business, which was doing writing, editing, and photo styling for about 50 magazines around the country. So my area of expertise was home decorating magazines. Really enjoyed that, but I had no work-life balance. I had fallen into starting my own business and just hadn't thought through what kind of boundaries I wanted to have. So I was working at night, working on the weekends, and pretty much felt guilty whenever I took time off when I wasn't sleeping. And after a few years of this, I was like, enough is enough. I don't care if I seem successful. If I can never stop working without feeling guilty, I don't actually feel successful. And so that's what led me in my own life to start to set boundaries, not work at night, not work on the weekends, say no, prioritize. And then my entrepreneur friend said, this is amazing. You should help other people. So that's what led me to starting to do time management coaching in 2009. So I've been doing this over 12 years. And then, in terms of what that means, at least in my world, is I am very committed to helping people accomplish lasting behavioral change. And so, what that means is I either work one on one, or I also have a group coaching program where I help people over the course of 3 to 6 months to figure out what time management strategies work for them, to put them into practice, and then also work on building resilience. Because, like you were sharing before about food, this isn't about a one and done thing. It's not a project, it's really a lifestyle change. So you have to learn, even when difficult things happen or you get discouraged or fall back, how to get back on track as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So let's dive right into time management.
Yeah.
Why do people struggle with time?
So there's a wide variety of reasons why people struggle with time management. One is actually a neurology thing that people have going on. So just depending on your natural brain dominance in different quadrants of your brain, you just naturally are stronger or weaker than this. Literally, some people are born with a stronger capacity to manage time, more of our left brain people, particularly back left. And if people are more right brain, it just doesn't come as naturally. Where we have planning and organization and putting things in order is not actually housed in our right brain. So if that's our more dominant part of our brain, this doesn't come intuitively and is a skill you have to learn. So that's one reason why it's so hard. The second reason why it can be difficult is that it depends what kind of skills you were taught. So even right brain people can absolutely learn how to manage their time. And if they happen to grow up in an environment where they had parents that taught them these skills, or teachers that guided them along the way, or coaches, or someone that did, they can pick them up and learn them, and it's not a problem. But if you just weren't exposed to people that were organized, or the organized people in your life didn't really help you learn, like they more just got frustrated at you that you couldn't do it, this is something that you just might not have had the skills building to do. And what I find is that I work with people all different ages, everywhere from just starting out in their career to people that are retired. And some people have never had someone that was patient enough to really walk through the process with them. And once they have that, even if they're in their 50s or 60s or even 70s, they learn these skills they just never knew before.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is I'm a profit first professional, and I don't even know if you know what profit first is, but it's a book by Mike Michalowicz, and the premise of the book is basically to help people with their cash management in their business. And the entire principle is based on two things. Number one, Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law dictates that when you have a finite resource, your consumption of that resource is going to expand to the entire resource available to you. And the other part of it is not trying to change our natural tendencies and finding a solution that works within the framework that we already act in. So in that case, the profit first case, what Mike presents is an idea where our typical behavior is to wake up in the morning and check our bank account balance. It's not to wake up in the morning and log into QuickBooks and see our P&L. Right. So if that's where we're going to get the data as to whether we feel like we're doing okay or not, then that's where we should be focusing to change what we're seeing when we log into the bank account to make sure that we're acting within the confines of the resource that's available to us. We shouldn't fool ourselves to think we have a greater resource. I'm wondering if that concept can translate over to time management. I know that Parkinson's law is definitely used in the time management realm, right? Because we only have 168 hours in the week. Everybody's got the same amount of time. Yet some people tend to have the ability to be super productive. I mean, look at the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. How are they different than somebody who's a small business owner or somebody who's an employee who they have the same hours in the day, yet they manage to accomplish so much more, seemingly accomplish so much more than other people. So, how exactly do we overcome this? What is the behavior that people are having natural tendencies for that we can kind of mold to that and not try to change it, but try to adapt to it to solve this problem?
Hmm. Yeah, so I think so. A couple responses to that question. So one is in terms of what you were saying about not trying to change people, but like adapt to better strategies. I do agree with that in certain instances. So for example, if you're naturally a super early bird or you're naturally a night owl, I think it's best to work with that. So I wouldn't have someone that's naturally a night owl trying to get up at 4:30 in the morning, nor would I tell someone that's a super early bird to try to do a late shift after their kids go to bed. So I totally agree with that. I also agree in terms of working with your tendency. Some people love digital things like having all their calendars and to-do lists and everything on computers. And some people really do best with paper, like even like executives. And so like do that. There's lots of ways that you can work within your natural tendencies to make things work. That being said, there comes a point where, especially if you're naturally incredibly spontaneous, that you actually can't work with your natural tendencies and you really need to build some new habits in a different direction to make things work. I'm not saying that every part of your life has to be regimented, but you do have to pick up certain skills in order to be successful. And what I would say are the difference between the people that are using their time really effectively, like you mentioned people that are executives versus people who maybe aren't, and those who aren't managing it effectively are a few things. And this is in relation to the Parkinson's law. Number one, radical prioritization. So those people that are executives or those people who are getting tons of things done, they are ignoring so many things. They're saying no to so many meetings. They are saying no to so many initiatives. They are, um, in many cases, not even reading a lot of their email, let alone responding to it. Like they just get to a point where they're like, I know absolutely what's most important, what I want to do, and anything that's outside of my priorities, I'm ignoring. And sometimes that may seem obnoxious to people that want their email responded to or they want to have a meeting, but that's what they have to do to be effective. So I would say number one is radical prioritization. And if you're a small business owner, if you're a lawyer, like if you have your firm, like you have to be clear, is this actually in my best interest? Does this do something for me or for my firm or what's happening? That doesn't mean that we don't do volunteer activities. It doesn't mean we might not take a call to mentor someone at some point. But at a certain point, you have to know what is benefiting you and what is not. And when you're choosing to do something that's not in your own best interest, you have to be really clear that you're doing that not because you have to, but because you want to for a particular reason. So that's number one.
I'm going
Number
to
two,
jump in for 1 second
yeah, go
because
for
I
it.
have a question about this. So don't
For
forget
sure.
where you were up to in
Hmm.
in your response to me.
Hmm.
But it's easy for, to look at somebody who's in an executive position and say, well, the reason they don't check emails because they've got an assistant that does that for them.
Right.
Or they've got, they have the means to solve that problem with other people's time. So
Right.
essentially they're expanding the time available to them by by paying for someone else's time, which is
Hmm.
now making them have more time in their
Yep.
day. Um,
Absolutely.
so for somebody who doesn't have that, is the solution that, yeah, well, go get it,
Hmm.
go find yourself an inexpensive VA and start having somebody manage your email and manage all
Hmm.
these things? Or are these truly things that don't need to be done, or they're not being done efficiently? Like there's different gradations, and I kind of
Yeah.
feel like,
Yeah.
we can't say you don't need email.
Right.
I don't think that's a realistic response. But at the same time, maybe people are doing the wrong things with email. So
Right.
email appears to be one of the top time sucks for some reason. I think
Hmm.
our phone in general is our top time suck. I notice that sometimes I will put my phone down on the nightstand in the bedroom when I'm
Hmm.
going to cook in the kitchen, and I will notice that subconsciously I keep reaching to my pocket to grab my phone.
Hmm.
Why? That's like such a second nature thing to pull the phone out and look at it to check notifications or to like. There's no like. It's not like it beeped. It's not like I got a notification, but yet I'm still reaching to pull it out, even though it's not even there. So we're in these bad habits of doing things. But what are the how do we identify what those bad habits are, and how do we get out of them?
Okay, so you had a few different questions there, so I'll do my best to answer them. So number one, with things like email and what I was talking about with executives, there is a range. So when you're just starting out in your career or your business, you do need to be responsive to more emails. As you progress in your career, you're going to need to be less and less responsive to things like that. Maybe your assistant takes care of it. Maybe honestly, no one takes care of it. I know when people get to a certain level in their career, they know that if something's important, someone will follow up or find another way. And I don't mean that again to be rude. I'm just telling you this is the reality of the situation for people that might be literally getting hundreds or up to 1,000 emails a day. They cannot do that and be effective. Um, so you need to know where you're at in your business and with your clients and what's appropriate or not. That may mean that you're answering the emails. It may mean you have some help. In that, it may mean you use tools like I use SaneBox, which just does a really good job of filtering your emails to make you more effective. Um, Number two, even if you do need to respond to your emails and your assistant is not doing that, there are things you can do to be more effective. So, for example, I get a lot of random emails every single day, messages through to my inbox or through LinkedIn. If someone is my client or prospective client, absolutely. I am responding to their emails and I do that. My personal standard is that I do that by the next business day. So I do not respond to people like immediately unless it's something super urgent, but they know by the next business day that I'm in the office, they're going to hear back from me. So that's a way that I make sure I'm consistent with them, but I also slow the flow. I am not constantly on email and sending it back and forth because I'm in a lot of coaching calls and then I also have project work I have to do. Um, Number two, if people are not people I know, and they are basically strangers asking me for random things, I completely reserve the right to not respond and not even read the email. So there are some things like someone reached out to me this week wanting me to potentially be interviewed for an article. I decided it was of value to me and said yes to that. But there's many different requests where I ignore or delete. And that's fine. Like basically the way I look at it is if someone is a total stranger, it's the equivalent of you getting something in your mailbox that was from someone you did not know. It's not expected that you're going to call them back or, um, you know, send them a letter back or anything. It's like, no, you sent a solicitation to me and I can choose to recycle that or I can choose to respond if it's of interest. And there are some people that will email you lots of times acting as if you do owe them a response, but you do not. And so it's important. And again, I don't mean that to be rude for those of you who are in sales. It's fine for you to follow up, but you just have to realize we don't have to respond. And so I think that that's something that's really critical, that even if you are the person answering your email, you're doing it on your terms. You know which messages are your priority, which are not. You also know what frequency makes sense. You might need to respond more quickly than the next business day. Maybe it looks like 3 times a day that you go through and you get back to people, but you have to have a way to control the flow because otherwise, like you were talking about with Parkinson's law, email will expand and you're going to get more of it back the faster you respond to it. So that's in regards to email. And
Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more. No buzzwords, no jargon, no BS, just results to make your law firm grow. That's Legalese Marketing. Legalese Marketing is a full-service marketing agency for lawyers by legal experts and digital advertising specialists. Their goal? To help your firm stand out in a competitive marketplace with personalized solutions to help your law firm attract the clients you want, backed by the systems to make it all work correctly. Visit profitwithlaw.com/legalese to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Noda, powered by M&T Bank. You went to law school to be a lawyer, not an accountant. Take advantage of Noda, a no-cost IOLTA management tool that helps solo and small law firms track client funds down to the penny. Enjoy peace of mind with one-click reconciliation, automated transaction alerts, and real-time bank data. Visit trustnoda.com to learn more. Terms and conditions may apply.
Back to your other question about how people are super effective and efficient. So I talked about prioritization. And then a second major thing is planning. And this again goes with Parkinson's law. If you jump into the day, you don't know what you're going to focus on, you don't know how much time you have to allocate to your priorities, you're going to wander and you'll spend a lot more time on things that aren't as important. And you may not get to the things that are most important, or you may spend too little time. So I highly recommend when I do planning in my calendar, I look at my calendar in week view and I can see all of my meetings. And then I know when I do my weekly planning, which I choose to do Monday morning, you may do Friday afternoon or Sunday evening, whatever works best for you. I block in time for what I know needs to get done. And that's my way of saying, no, this is my priority. This is what needs to happen. And that's something that I can use to then know whether or not I can take additional meetings or whether I have to say no to different sorts of meetings that are happening. It helps me to know whether I can respond to different requests that come up. It's all something where I'm aware, what is my plan? What are my priorities? How long do I think they should take? And then I'm trying to aim towards that instead of just wandering through my day or being responsive to everyone else and not asserting what I believe is important.
Now, I mean, this is all great if you know what your priorities are, right?
Hmm.
And I think that many people listening to this, part of the reason why they struggle with time management is because they're not clear on what those
Hmm.
priorities are. So, how does somebody get clear on that? And going back to my initial, what I said in the intro, like how do we set it up in a way that it doesn't feel like we're trying to change our behaviors, our personal behaviors? Um, not that not there's a problem with changing our behaviors. I think that we do need to change in some way, but
Hmm.
if we try to change too much, it's not going to stay. It's kind of like New Year's resolution. I'm going to go to the gym every day for 2 hours and I'm going to lose 100 pounds. And
Yeah.
then we show up for like 3 minutes and we're done. And that's
Right.
it. And, okay, I went to the gym. Now, see you next January. So I, we don't want to get in a situation where we're like, okay, this is a great idea. We're going to go and do it. And I'm going to make a to-do list. I'm going to check the to-do list for an hour before I start. And, and then the next morning you come in and there's the first emergency that comes up in your email inbox that you weren't supposed to be checking and you get derailed from the plan. So
Mhm.
what does somebody do to kind of take those first steps to get on track and to not try to create this completely new path that they're probably not going to stick to?
Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just fine to start with one thing at a time. Um, so what I mean by that is in terms of priorities, you could start out with just saying, what's the one thing that's most going to benefit my life or my business? So for example, um, let's say on the business side that you want to get more clients and that you know the best way to get more clients is asking current or past clients for referrals. I was hypothetically, let's say that's what you found to be most effective. Well, then you could say, my priority is every week for at least 30 minutes. I'm going to reach out to current or past clients and send them a little template email or send them a card just saying, hey, really value your business. And if you know anyone that would be interested in my services, I really appreciate a referral. Here's how to do it. And that can be just something really simple where you make it a priority on a regular basis to reach out to someone. It's 30 minutes a week and it's not something that has to be crazy overwhelming. And I recommend you put it in your calendar as a recurring event so that you don't forget it and that you have it in a place where you can do something about it. The same with, like, let's say life outside of work. Maybe your top priority is to start getting some physical activity in because you just haven't been doing as much as normal. And you're right, we shouldn't be like going to say we're going to go to the gym 2 hours a day and get totally overwhelmed. It could be as simple as, again, saying 3 times a week for 30 minutes, I'm going to go on a walk or a run. And that's going to happen Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. I'm going to get that in my calendar in the mornings, and then on the days before, so it'd be Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, in the evening, have a little recurring reminder then, hey, remember, run 7 a.m. and make sure that that evening before you set out your running clothes, your running shoes, whatever you need to be prepared, and then you start to integrate that. And what I really focus on and why I work with people for 3 to 6 months is that you do need those small incremental changes because that's what's sustainable. It's not sustainable to try to exercise 2 hours a day, or it's not sustainable to all of a sudden try to radically change your entire business. But what I find is that week by week, if you pick something to focus on, so maybe you start out with, okay, 30 minutes a week on asking for referrals. Then maybe the next week, what you say is, I'm going to check my email when I start work, and then I'm going to take a 2 hour block where I just really focus on getting billable hours in. I'm not going to check email again until that 2 hour block is done. And then just gradually, as you try out these different strategies and you get more comfortable, you can make them stick.
So when you're working with clients and they're taking these small incremental shifts and they're moving in the right direction, what do you find is the thing that derails them from that process the most?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the biggest pitfall that we should be looking out for in this process?
Yeah. So the reason why I work with people for at least 3 months is because the biggest pitfall is discouragement. And they need to learn resilience. So what has happened is why they typically have not learned time management skills up until the point in which they work with me is that they hit a bump in the road. So they try something for 1 week or 2 weeks or a month, and then they get a cold, they just don't feel good, or they get in an argument with someone at work, or they don't sleep well, and then they mess something up, and then they're like, I can't do this, I'm a failure, why did I even try? And then they throw out everything entirely. And so one of the biggest things that people need to learn is that it's okay. Like, you don't have to be perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. You just pick yourself up, you start again from where you're at, and you keep going. Like, and so a lot of it is letting go of self criticism, practicing self compassion, learning to try again. And the way I explain it to my clients, it's very similar, like a little child learning how to walk. You don't expect a little person to go from being a blob on the ground to all of a sudden running around. Like, first they learn how to push up on their little arms, and then they crawl, and then eventually they pull themselves up on the side of the couch. And it's a gradual process where they advance and regress, but they get there as long as they're continued to be encouraged. And so I think having that real self-compassion and the ability to keep trying is really what makes the difference in seeing that change.
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought that you were going to go to boundaries when I asked that question. And I can definitely see how discouragement is a big deal. I mean, I do that. I refer back to dieting because I love food and I struggle with that self-control, and I can do it for a period of time, but like you said, if I've been good for like 2 months, and then there's a cookie and on the counter and it's just calling my name, and I'll eat it. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, if I was able to eat that and I was fine, maybe I can have 3 or 4 of them. And then before I know it, it's like, well, I had cookies. Now I don't need, I'm off my diet, and it's, boom,
Yeah.
floodgates have opened.
Yeah. Versus processing it as, okay, I ate a cookie. I really enjoyed it, but that isn't really in my best interest. So I'm going to get back on track. No cookies for me today.
Right.
So yeah.
Exactly. But going back to boundaries, I know that with my own personal journey with time management, first of all, really deciding to live by my calendar was the key for me to get control of the boundaries conversation. So basically, and I want you to talk to this as well, but I'm going to share my own personal experience and journey, and then ask you for feedback on what you see and how you coach your clients on this. But the hardest thing is to say no to somebody, right? So we have all these different things coming in our direction, and we're like, oh yes, I have to do that. We jump to do that. Then something else comes at us. We're like, no, I have to do that. We jump to that. We didn't finish the first thing. So now we've got all these partially started things where we forget what we were up to, and it creates this tremendous inefficiency. And then there's people in our lives that we feel like we can't say no to. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe, all these other things come up where somebody has an ask or they have a demand, and we feel like if we say no, we're going to be starting a fight, we're going to be letting them down. So we feel like we have to do this. And for me, deciding that I am going to live by my calendar gave me the permission to say no to things because my calendar was already full. Like somebody says, hey, I have this, they text me, hey, I have this tax question. And I can, first of all, I can ignore the text because I'm busy. But then when I finally do respond, I'm able to say, look, my calendar is full. I need you to send an email to my assistant and we'll set up a call for us to talk. And I don't need to be knee-jerk responsive to that. I was also able to do that with my wife. I told her, I said, look, I live by my calendar. If we have a function that I need to be at, it needs to go on the calendar. So now we have created this habit where she invites me through the calendar so that it's there. It blocks my time, and it essentially makes it that nobody else is ending up in that time slot when that happens. I recently had just the other day, I noticed that there was an appointment on my calendar for later this afternoon. I have the kids this afternoon. I blocked out my calendar, but somebody on my team overrode it. So last night I went in, I canceled the appointment. I left a note for the client and I said, I don't know how you ended up on my calendar. Somebody made a mistake. I'm not available during this time. My team will reach out to reschedule. And that was it. And, so it gave me permission to stick to my guns where normally I would say, oh, somebody ended up, with a call at this time. I have to take it. And now I'm going to have my kids running around, me neglecting them. And so I can take a business call. So that's worked for me to kind of solidify and allow me to create these boundaries and stick to them. What is your view on boundaries? How does that play into the whole conversation, and how do you help your clients with that?
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that as a time management coach that you found those good solutions because that's so important. And it really is about being clear on your priorities and then asserting those. So that's awesome. So you did a great job of covering things around the calendar. So just even starting out with having a sense of what you want on your calendar, like you mentioned, blocking out some time for your kids and having that on your calendar so you knew that was the priority and then could enforce that priority is wonderful. So that's a great first step. Um, we also end up needing boundaries in other areas of our life. So for example, like you said with the text message coming through, it's okay to have boundaries with clients in particular around when you will or will not be responsive. I know that that can be really difficult if you're on like a very difficult case. So I know if you're doing a difficult case and like you're about to go to trial or something like that's happening, there may be times when you do need to be responsive off hours. But I would say it's good to have some general rules around when you want to be responsive by text or by email versus when it's like this is a time with my family or just by myself or sleeping or whatever it is, so that there's a mutual understanding. And I would actually state it up front, like something along the lines of, after 6 or after 7, I'm not actively responding to messages, but I will be sure to get back to you the next business morning. And by doing that, you lower the tension so that you're not thinking like, oh, they sent me a text at like 9:45, really don't want to answer it right now, but I feel like they should because they're going to be like, well, he has his phone. Why didn't he answer it? Versus like if you just have communicated upfront, these are the general hours when I answer things, people can be totally fine with that. And it's usually not a big deal. I try to encourage most business communication to happen through email versus through text just for that reason, because if it's in my email inbox for work, I'm not even going to see it until the next business day. So then that reduces all that kind of internal angst about, I saw it, I didn't see it, all of that. I don't have any email notifications that come to the front of my phone. So none of that is even an issue. So you can create some boundaries by upfront letting people know when you do or don't communicate, also upfront choosing what notifications and what means of communication you use. I also just set the standard that I respond to email by the next business day, so people are not expecting responses from me just a couple hours after they send it. Um, Also, like, it's a little different now because of everything going on, but eventually when everyone's fully back in the office, you need to have these kind of conversations with your colleagues also around. It might be to say, between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., I'm really nose down working on cases, or I'm really working on getting some client work done that needs to happen. And so please do not disturb unless it's absolutely essential. And some people even put signs on their door if they have a door outside their cubicle, just saying, hey, focus work right now, and put their headphones on and really do that. Or sometimes they do the opposite where they say, I'm going to set up some office hours, maybe between 1 and 2:30 every afternoon. So if you have questions, you just want to drop in without scheduling a formal meeting, that's a perfect time for you to drop in. And my clients will then use that time to also answer email. So it's a really easy thing to answer email. And if someone drops in, great. And if they don't, it's fine. And they've got that. And so a lot of it is around communicating what works or doesn't work, figuring out what works for you, and then asserting that. So if you said something needs to be really urgent to interrupt you between 9 and 11 and they drop by around 10, you can say, like, can this wait till after 11? If they're like, oh yeah, not a problem, then you say, okay, please come back then. And so a lot of it is having the confidence to know it's okay to say no, and it's okay to not constantly be available, because that creates so much stress when you can't get your own work done.
Yeah, and I want to go back for a moment because there's some people who are listening to this that have discounted basically everything that you said, because as soon as you said don't have your clients text you or turn off your phone at night, there are certain people who are like, oh, I can't listen to her because she doesn't understand my business. So I want to just take a step back and say, for those of you who are in criminal law where, you need to potentially answer a call from somebody who just got arrested at 3 o'clock in the morning, or somebody in family law who maybe you need to take a call if your client gets into a domestic dispute in the middle of the night, those kinds of emergencies come up. What you really need to do is if you listen to what Elizabeth was saying, is get really, really clear on what you're okay being disturbed about at various times and what you're not okay. Like, you need to think about it up front and say, this is the parameters of what I'm okay with dealing with in these after hour situations, and these are the parameters that I'm not. Same thing with text. Elizabeth feels that you probably shouldn't be doing text messaging with clients. However, there's a lot of opinion around that says, hey, you should be communicating with your clients the way they want to communicate, which might be text message, might be Facebook Messenger, might be Clubhouse, might be, who knows, like there's so many different means of communication. You have to find a system that allows that communication to happen in a way that you can control how you respond to it. And so there's a lot of technologies available that allow you to have your text messages go into your practice management software and not to your phone, where you can give out a different phone number for people to use for that text number that allows you to control that. And the other thing is to think about like a virtual reception service. We do a lot of work with Smith AI. Smith AI is very well known, and they, they're the premier virtual reception service for law firms. And they have a chat bot on their website that they put on your website. And by the way, if you go and check Smith AI out, make sure to tell them that we sent you. Use code ProfitLaw100. You'll get some extra special discounts. I don't have it in front of me, so I know that you'll get a free white glove setup of that chatbot AI, and you'll also get, I think it's like $100 off of your first month, or maybe your first month free. I forget exactly what the details are, so don't quote me on it, but tell them that I sent you. But the thing that they can allow you to do is when you get really clear on what you're willing to be disturbed on, and then you hand over the intake process of answering that call or answering that text message or answering that web chat to somebody who doesn't have skin in the game and they're following your process, they're going to be able to create that border and boundary that you need, so that you're only getting the ones that meet the criteria you've already set out. And then let them call you in the middle of the night when they have somebody on the line who needs you right now. but all the other people who just happen to be insomniacs, can't sleep, and they're 3 o'clock in the morning saying, oh, now's a good day to deal with that DUI I got 2 months ago. Let me call this attorney. And now your phone's ringing in the middle of the night, and it's not somebody who's sitting in jail that needs to talk to you. You have somebody to filter that, and and be able to make sure that you're not getting that interruption.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to be very, very clear on what we're okay with and what we're not okay with in order to be able to put these boundaries in place.
Yeah,
And
no, that's
Elizabeth, I'm sure
yeah.
that's what you
Yeah.
were
Oh,
trying to get
exactly.
across as well.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I love that you could give very specific examples because I have worked with people in law firms, but since you're actually in law yourself, like you can uh, give even more clear examples. And a lot of the people that I've worked with in law firms, it's more corporate law. So it's a lot of things where they don't have people, getting arrested in the middle of the night. Um, so yeah, absolutely. Be clear on what works and doesn't work. And then also I would say question some of your assumptions. Like, so for example, one of my coaching clients is a wealth like investment advisor for very high end clients. So like very high end, lots of money clients. And when he first started working with me, and he'd been doing this for probably like 10, 11 years. So for a while, his operating assumption was that he just had to be available for his clients at any time or else they weren't going to want to work with him anymore. So it was like he would answer messages at 10 o'clock at night. He would answer messages all the weekend. He would answer messages all his vacation because he's like, well, they have tons of money. And if they aren't happy, they can just leave. And so that's kind of how he was operating. It was making him crazy because he never felt like he could relax at night and couldn't really take a vacation and all of that. And we've been working together over the last 3 or 4 months. He's in a 6 month program and it has radically transformed his life to just start to set some boundaries. Like it could be as simple as in the evening if someone texts, just if he chooses to, he can acknowledge it and say, hey, I got your text, I'll reply tomorrow. And because they usually have a question about something in regards to investments or that sort of thing. And it really was possible for him to set a lot more boundaries and he's way less stressed out. And he took a 2 week vacation around Christmas without really doing lots of work. And so it's yes, absolutely. If someone is getting arrested and they need your help right away, please answer their message and do what needs to get done. But there's likely a lot of people where it could wait until it was a reasonable hour and you'd be just fine. And it's more you that's turning it into an emergency instead of it actually being that much of a priority. And I think a good indicator is whether or not you feel resentment. So if you don't feel resentful and you're like, oh, yeah, no, this was super serious, I'm glad I took the call, then that's a sign, yeah, that was within priorities. If you're feeling resentful, like, hey, I'm at my kid's baseball game, I do not want to be talking to you right now. I mean, don't say that. But if you're feeling that, then that's probably a sign, hey, this wasn't like the best choice to pick up the phone and agree to talk to this person right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think it's important for us to not do things based on our fear of what might happen based on our actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be comfortable with your position and stick to it. And I mean, look, you guys are attorneys. This should be very natural to you to be willing to take a position and hold it and stick to it. So it's really just a matter of taking the time and the effort to get clear on what it is that you're comfortable with or not comfortable
Yeah.
with, and and not be fearful of the ramifications of that position, but rather just be very clear in your communication so that expectations are set up front. Because if expectations are set, then you always have that to fall back on, right? If you tell somebody, look, I'm only in the office 3 days a week. Those are the 3 days that we can have conversations. Those are my office hours. And if you want to talk to me, it's going to be during those times. Then they know up front that that's the case. If they wanted somebody who's available 5 days a week, they should have chose a different attorney. They chose you anyway. So if you were clear in that communication, you always have that to go back to if they have a problem with it, to say, look, I never misled you. I told you that this is how I operate. And everybody's got different situations, and you don't have to look at what other people are doing to say, this is what I need to do because everyone else is doing this. It's okay to be different. It's okay to have different priorities than the person next door. I do just like everyone else. I look at peers, and it's very hard to be like, oh my gosh, this person is crushing it. But of course they're crushing it because they're always working on the weekend and they're always doing this, that, and I'm with my family on the weekend. For me, that's a non-negotiable. I'm not working on the weekend. So of course they're going to be making bigger, better progress than me. Right. But that's a very bad position to be in. That's not a healthy way to look at it. Because yeah, they might have more flexibility in that area, but they have other areas where they're not nearly as good as me. My children have, they make me resilient. They make me they make me react to situations better, more calmly, think things through more thoroughly. So I have an edge in other areas because of my situation. So looking at the Joneses, comparing yourself to somebody else is not a good way to arrive at those decisions. Get really clear on who you are and what you want, and then put that into action. Elizabeth, this has been a great conversation. We're just about out of time, so we're gonna have to cut it short. But I'd love to continue it at some point. I think that we don't talk enough about time management, boundaries, and all of these things, and the different tools that you can have to allow you to really hone in on this. And I mean, there's a lot of technology out there that can help you with getting organized and with managing your time once you're clear on what it is. But I think that we've done a good job in covering the basics. If I asked you to leave our guests with one parting words of wisdom, piece of advice, what is the number one piece of advice that you would share when it comes to getting control of your life, managing your time, any of the things we've spoken about?
Yeah, I would say my number one piece of advice is live by your personal definition of success. So, what I mean by that is decide what success means to you and then align your time with that. Just like you were saying, success means to me having time with my family on the weekends. And so you're living by that values. Do that, and then you will not only be successful, but actually feel successful.
Awesome. Love that. Elizabeth, do you want to share with our folks how to follow up with you, get in touch with you, maybe something that you want to share with them? The floor is yours. You can promote yourself away for a moment.
Absolutely. So I am a time management coach and author. And if you'd like to see my website, it is reallifee.com. So that's REALLIFE and then another e.com. And we have a free giveaway of how to say no. So if you need to be better at setting boundaries, and you can get that at reallifee.com/WP/say no. So reallifee.com/WP/say no. And remember, the kind of clients you want to work with are the ones that will respect your boundaries. So the people that won't respect them, you didn't want to work with them anyway.
Awesome. I love that. And folks, we're going to link that up in the show notes. So if you are on the treadmill, in the shower, out for a drive, don't worry about the fact that you didn't get to write it down. Show notes are available in the description of the episode on your podcast player, as well as on our website by going to profitwithlaw.com. Just go to the blog and all of our episodes are there. You can search by episode number. You can look at the most recent one, or you can just put a / and the episode number so you can get access. Actually, I know what episode number this is. It's a strange day in the studio. If this is your first time listening to the show and you enjoyed our conversation, you enjoyed this conversation I just had with Elizabeth, we've got a ton more for you. First of all, we've got 188 episodes for you to binge on. But besides for that, we're here twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. On Tuesdays, it's just me sharing my thoughts and opinions behind the microphone. Sometimes you may agree with them, sometimes you may not, but hopefully it always provides some sort of value to you. And on Thursdays, I'm bringing amazing guests just like Elizabeth to the show. So make sure you hit that subscribe button in your podcast player so that you know when we release a new episode. And folks, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you on Tuesday. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.